The planet Alpha, for much of the universe's existence, has served as both steward and home to one of the most fundamental pillars of life itself. Within its bounds, one of the most complex concepts of existence was planted, giving rise to beings whose primary purpose would be to preserve and promote it. Those born on this planet would be called Aurangels, inheriting extraordinary abilities to create diverse forms of life, harnessing a fraction of a higher power to grant them souls and transform them into beings endowed with life and free will. Throughout history, numerous Aurangels fulfilled their honorable duty without question, making the universe a thriving place filled with freedom for those who deserved it. However, eons ago, control over this balance was far more lenient than it is today. At that time, the inexperience of these beings, classified as Aurangels, prevented them from seeing beyond their immediate activities, creating widespread potential imbalance. The universe became anarchic, a place where only the most powerful beings survived and thrived, spreading chaos throughout its expanse, conquering civilizations that were not theirs and eradicating many others. This was not entirely unexpected, as it is natural for all things, at first, to have flaws so they may learn from them in the future. Finally, after hundreds of thousands of years, a golden apple fell from the sacred tree, its radiance far greater and more magnificent than any other member of its lineage. That beautifully hued apple was carefully preserved and safeguarded by all the Aurangels of that era, for they were certain that the god emerging from it would be the most just, significant, and powerful Aurangel to ever exist. They could not have been more correct. This being would be nurtured and cared for with the greatest love imaginable until the long-awaited day of its birth. The brilliance and ability emanating from this entity were astonishing, fully validating the beliefs of those who held such expectations. It was not customary for Aurangels to take on names, as they were, in essence, all part of a singular existence. Therefore, they bore the same name as a mark of respect for both their predecessors and successors. However, the presence of this new creator god was so extraordinary that it was given a unique name, Aurangel Z. This name symbolized its unparalleled potential, signifying that there would be none above it. Z accepted the weight of this responsibility with profound respect and significance. The imbalance and inequality in potential that had plagued the universe slowly began to fade, for Z, in its short time of existence, had far surpassed the work of all its predecessors. It was a loving and deeply responsible being. Its divine role did not make it feel superior to any form of life. In Z's view, all life forms were part of it and thus held the same intrinsic value. In short, Z was the perfect deity for a universe as chaotic as this one, transforming it into a thriving realm teeming with life in countless forms, sizes, and colors. His appreciation for these forms of life was so profound that he constantly sought better ways to create and preserve life. Moreover, he was a being of unparalleled potential, possessing unique abilities and an enviable diplomatic capacity. It didn't take him long to realize that he was neither unique nor supreme, and it was highly likely that there were beings equal to or more powerful than him. His curiosity and fascination with this notion quickly led him to discover the existence of dimensional demons, beings tasked with monitoring the rifts between dimensions to ensure each remained a distinct multiverse. Even for Z, this revelation was overwhelming as he realized his universe was not unique. There were hundreds, thousands, or perhaps millions of universes within his dimension, and possibly countless more beyond. Fascinated by these discoveries, Z learned from the dimensional demons the skills necessary to travel between dimensions, opening up a multiverse of infinite possibilities before him. Up until this point, nothing demonstrated excessive confidence or posed a significant threat to any mortal. However, what no one knew was that Z lacked the ability to fully understand how manipulative mortals could be. This blessing of exploring other worlds soon became his greatest curse, not only for himself, but for his entire universe. Z explored hundreds of different dimensions, amazed by the variety of life forms they hosted. In one of these, he encountered a realm that acted as a gateway to a horrific hell, where he found a little girl named Irina. She lived in constant fear and insecurity, and Z developed a strong bond of friendship with her as he showed her her true worth. strengthening the connection between them. Inspired by these experiences, he began to impart knowledge to his creations about the diverse worlds he had encountered. This led to the birth of magical beings in the Amazon dimension, experts in manipulating time in the Omega dimension, and many other extraordinary creations. However, the most significant discovery came from a mysterious being in a desolate dimension, the technique of fusion. The idea that two or more beings could merge into one, inheriting the abilities of each, fascinated him. Z was suspicious of the being who taught him this technique, an emotionless individual who seemed devoid of a soul. He dismissed this as a trait of the being's race. Before leaving, the being, who introduced himself as Metamorph, invited Z to return, claiming there were many forms of fusion and that the one he had demonstrated was merely one of many. Although the tone of Metamorph's words made Z uneasy, he expressed gratitude and thought he would never return. Yet, the melancholic nature of that dimension left a mark on him, fueling his curiosity. Over time, Z confirmed the truth of Metamorph's claims. Fusion was real, and a race known as the Metamorphs, pioneers of this technique, had evolved greatly over the ages. To Z, this ability represented fascinating potential, though he had promised not to alter the balance of life in any single place too much. However, his curiosity got the better of him, and he returned. During his second visit, the dimension seemed even gloomier than before. Metamorph reappeared, confidently stating he had known Z would return. Captivated by the knowledge, Z questioned him about the origins of the technique and who he truly was. Metamorph revealed that the fusion technique was created by his race, which, blinded by power, experimented on itself, fusing until their population dwindled to one. When Z asked if Metamorph had been responsible for this extinction, he responded that it had been an extreme measure to contain the madness and chaos that had overtaken his people. Metamorph explained that the fusion technique had been taught by an ancient demon, a bodiless entity that had experimented on his race. He described his vacant gaze as a result of the constant death within him, as he carried the souls of his people. This story stirred a profound sense of compassion in Z, prompting him to offer to visit the dimension regularly to keep Metamorph company in his loneliness. What Z did not know was that everything he had been told, except for the origin of the technique, was a web of lies. As Z spent more time in that dimension, he began to lose interest in his own universe. His dedication and commitment waned, worrying his peers on planet Alpha. Z was no longer the attentive and responsible Aurangel he had once been. He barely fulfilled his role, and his behavior resembled that of a dimensional demon. Over time, the change in Z became evident. He was distant, indifferent, and had lost the happiness that had once defined him. Faced with this, the Aurangels made the difficult decision to replace him. Although many golden apples had fallen from the sacred tree during his reign, none were like Z's. Yet they had no other choice. They cultivated a new apple and instilled in it the example of Z as a reference for the future. When Z learned of this, he saw it as a betrayal. He now believed his position was unique and that no one should replace him. Metamorph had fed his ego, teaching him that considering himself equal to inferior beings only caused problems. The change in Z was undeniable. For the first time, the humble and loving being had developed selfishness. Z decided to take his apprentice, the new Aurangel, on a mission as a test. The goal was to confront Cariel's demon army attacking a planet. Instead of quelling the invaders diplomatically, as he usually would, Z chose to eliminate those who disobeyed him. During the battle, the young apprentice was defeated and destroyed by the demons while Z watched without any reaction. This event marked the point of no return. The other Aurangels tried to reason with him, but Z, consumed by his ego and new vision, threatened them, warning that he would not tolerate further criticism or questioning. Z's threat made it clear to the Aurangels that he was no longer the same being they had admired. His transformation had reached an irreversible point. Though it pained them deeply, they decided to get rid of him for the sake of the universe. However, this would not be an easy task, as Z had amassed immense power during his time as an Aurangel. They waited until Z returned to the dark dimension, which had been gradually corrupting him, to execute their plan. Z, entirely consumed by Metamorph's influence, returned as usual. There, his companion greeted him with a triumphant smile, commenting on how evident his change had become and how much he now resembled him. Z, blinded by Power and Metamorph's words, failed to see that he was being manipulated. Metamorph, exploiting his control over Z, mentioned the existence of residual energy from the ancient Aurangels. This energy, contained within a vessel with a powerful seal, represented the accumulated essence of all the Aurangels who had ever existed. To take it would mean gaining unimaginable power. Influenced by his ego and desire for more power, Z decided to return to Planet Alpha to claim it. When he arrived at Planet Alpha, the tension was palpable. The other Supreme Beings knew this would likely be the last time they faced Z. Without saying a word, he headed straight to the place where the sealed energy was kept. The others tried to stop him, warning him that taking this power would be his downfall. However, he completely changed, ignored their warnings. The Aurangels, desperate, launched a joint attack in an effort to stop him. Yet Z's power was so immense that none of them could even move him. What Z did not realize was that this attack was merely a distraction. The Aurangels used a powerful collective seal, a technique they had prepared specifically for this moment. The seal took Z by surprise and dragged him into the dark dimension that had corrupted him, confining him there for eternity. As he was being pulled away, Z cursed the Aurangels, vowing that he would one day return to exact vengeance on all of them and every being in the universe who had turned their back on him. Thus, the story of the greatest Aurangel came to an end, or so it seemed. Though it appeared his existence had been limited by the sacrifice of the other Aurangels, Z vowed to himself that he would find a way to return. In his mind, the universe had betrayed him, and now his sole objective was to make every inhabitant he had once protected pay. His fall represented a tragedy for the Aurangels and the entire universe, marking the beginning of a latent threat that could resurface at any moment.